I want to quickly give you a bird's eye view of how to approach any subject or how to deal with a topic. And I'm sharing this as a scientist, as a researcher, something I learned through the years, and even more so predominantly during my PhD days ages ago, and also now as the National President Life Skills for the Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, where we are ourselves in the process of creating a robust policy for the benefit of lakhs and lakhs of women professionals in our country. These learnings were very basic, but solid. And I think these may just help the audience today. So I'm just going to share it regardless before I move into the actual topic. The skill of critical thinking and creative thinking, and then going on to critical writing. These are very fundamental elements, not only in academic writing, but in any rational or constructive writing. So when we're talking about thinking critically, we are talking of the ability to analyze information and experience, formulate ideas, derive conclusions, ask pertinent questions, and present logical arguments. When you do a root cause analysis, through your questions, it becomes easy to identify the actual cause of the problem, and then you can address the issue better. And when you ask questions within the group, don't worry about what the other person will think or say or not like, etc., etc. This is the space for open, factual, and rational deliberation. So move between the heart and the head. Don't worry too much. Just allocate the duties. For starters, let's say, let your heart throw the questions. And believe me, when you do that, lots of pain is going to emerge from there. For example, your heart may say, I cannot see poor 10 or 12-year-old starved children begging on the street. Don't they deserve a good life and education? What can I do to make a difference? Or let's say the pandemic has created havoc in the world. And apart from health challenges, there are so many people without jobs today. What's going wrong? And how do we correct this? And questions like this, right? So when the heart is in motion, it's going to come up with all of the things that actually touch the chord right in. Once that's done, now let the head think about the answers based on data available, on factual information, and rational discussions. You're obviously going to see a mix of both, your head and your heart through and through, but just bear in mind which one of the two gets to be more dominant and at what point in time. Right, so that's the first thing. Also, don't be afraid to ask questions to the status quo, because innovative thinking actually begins right there, when you start questioning the status quo. Another important aspect is openness and humility of not knowing things. It's okay to not know, but it's not okay to stop being curious to know the answers. So ask questions, no matter how small your doubt is. Once you have some answers, some facts and figures, some information or data, and have rationalized it, now you move into the creative thinking space, which is primarily the ability to depart from traditional ways of thinking, resulting in generation of original and innovative ideas that enable us to respond adaptively to life situations. When you look at resolving an issue or a problem, think through the situation as a process to be resolved through maybe a number of steps or even micro steps. So what you do is that when you start refining your points, you choose a course of action from a number of options, which may result in the specific outcome that you want to achieve, which means that you have critically analyzed every aspect of the issue. And lastly, my personal opinion is on the language used. Keep it simple and precise. Effective communication happens when we have the ability to express our ideas and thoughts, in this case in written, which is simple to understand, is complete in content, and where the intent is made clear. So now let's talk about the theme, a more prosperous future. Prosperity, the word, that itself can be defined in many ways, like how success can be. For some, prosperity is money. For some, it is fame. For some, it could be good health. For some, it could be great human relationships, and so on and so forth. But when we talk of a prosperous future as a community, as mankind, the lens through which we see this becomes a little tinted, okay? So there are global issues we are all passionate about, we passionately feel for, and we believe that if those issues are resolved, we would have a prosperous future. Two such issues that both hemispheres see are education and unemployment, which is even more rampant in the pandemic era. We are all aware of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, and Global Goal 4 is quality education, which demonstrates that it is a crucial aspect of our lives. It is the harbinger of world peace, as well as a catalyst in sustainable development. The right to education has been defined in Article 26 of the United Declaration of Human Rights, with the declaration calling for free and compulsory elementary education. Furthermore, the Convention on the Rights of the Child, adopted in 1989, states that countries shall make higher education accessible to all. I recall the Nobel Peace Laureate Malala Yousafzai once said, "One child, one teacher, one book, and one pen can change the world." Also, Nelson Mandela rightly called education the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Today, in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic, one witnesses an unprecedented disruption in education and learning on a global scale, affecting more than 1.6 billion students over 190 countries. And that's why, understandably, the International Day of Education this year was celebrated under the theme Recover and Revitalize Education for the COVID-19 Generation, with the goal to increase collaboration and international solidarity, to place education and lifelong learning at the center of global recovery, while also transforming towards a more inclusive, safe, and of course, a sustainable society. Education must celebrate learning in all contexts and encourage the sharing of innovations that fulfill the potential of every learner, no matter what their circumstances. I strongly believe that education is the key to sustainable development. We must ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Education is a very powerful tool which can aid people out of poverty and provide them with promising futures. Despite this, about 265 million people, especially children and adolescents across the world, do not have the opportunity to enter or complete a school. This is a violation of their human right to education. The world cannot afford a generation of children and young people who lack the skills they need to that they need to compete in the 21st century scenario or this economy. And nor can we afford to leave behind an entire, race, in fact, half of humanity behind, right? Additionally, the lack of inclusive quality education hinders countries from achieving gender equality and breaking the cycle of poverty, which leaves millions of children, youth, and adults beyond and behind. All people have rights, no matter who they are, where they live, what language they speak, what their religion is, what they think, what they look like, what their gender identity is, whether they have a disability or not, whether they are rich or poor, and no matter who their parents or families are or what their parents and families believe they or do. No person on Mother Earth should be withheld from the basic right of education for any reason. And governments must do whatever it takes to make sure that every citizen in their countries can enjoy all the rights they deserve. We must understand that education can break or reverse cycles of intergenerational poverty. Studies have shown that if all the girls and boys complete secondary education, 420 million people could be lifted out of poverty. Education should help individuals to fully develop their personality, their talents, their abilities. It should teach them to understand their own rights and to respect other people's rights, cultures, and differences. It should help them to live peacefully and protect the environment they live in. Let me share some interesting facts that emerged out of research and studies a while ago on higher education when I was going past. This is a couple of years ago. It hasn't changed hugely, but maybe some parts have changed. And how it impacts employability. Higher education in India suffers from numerous universal insufficiencies, with the net result that it continues to make available graduates that are unemployable, even though there is a humongous demand for skilled manpower. The rigid academic structures, insufficient infrastructure and facilities, sizable vacancies in faculty positions and poor faculty, outdated teaching methods, disinterested and unmotivated students, overloaded classrooms, widespread geographic, income, and gender and ethnic imbalances, the rusting independence of academic institutions, and what have you. These are some of the known problems of the Indian higher education system. We must understand that education is believed to be a dynamic phenomenon that recognizes the changes in the environment, responds to new demands, and keeps developing with the society of which it is a part. Possessions of relevant knowledge, creation of new knowledge, and capacity for its application have become determinants in the strength of a nation today. Education has come to center stage and is today the most important instrument for transformation, for advancement, and for development. NEP 2020 is here, as we all know, and it's up for some reckoning as part of your entire exercise. You know, the best way to actually enhance or improve yourself is through introspection, through self-evaluation, by critiquing your own work or your own creation. In the same way, when you examine the policy, please do approach it with hard-hitting questions of actually whether it is delivering what it promised to deliver. So let me give you some food for thought. Questions like, let's say, is the policy helping to create more thinkers? Are we moving away from rote learning? Apart from cognitive skills, are we encouraging students to develop their affective and psychomotor faculties? Is the policy going to make more students employable? Are we creating entrepreneurial mindsets? Is the policy actually inclusive? Is it actually equal education for all? And so on and so forth. Continual evaluation and assessments with zero biases and open feedback will help us evolve with better systems and policies. There is no debating that in a globalized economy, the proficiency and competence of manpower have to meet global standards, and thus curriculum and syllabi have to meet national needs and global challenges. We have to prioritize education, absolutely, and prioritize it as a public good. We have to support it with cooperation, partnerships, and funding, and recognize that leaving no one behind starts with education. I think I've given enough food for thought to get you all cracking. So let me close my talk with one of my quotes that I recently shared on social media. While change is the only constant, constructive disruption is the new norm of today. Keep altering your thinking hat to be that incredible disruptor. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your insightful words. And I'm sure the participants here are surely feeling extremely inspired by your speech and the knowledge that you shared with us today.